continuing with the Dutch, we're going to look at two extraordinary painters from this period, the 17th century, both very different from each other in style as well as in kind of personality, uh, and in the kinds of works they produce, but who are both Dutch in the sense that we learned in the last module. We're going to begin with this Johannes Vermeer, a painter who didn't do many paintings at all. I think 36 is the number of paintings we have for him, extant paintings, versus Rembrandt, who I don't know how many paintings we have. In fact, there's a project out to decide, which paintings are his and which paintings are of his students, and it's taken decades to get through the number of paintings. He also was a printmaker, which we'll learn about in this module. So again, Johannes Vermeer, we'll begin with him, probably best known for this particular style. Here's the date on that painting. It's called Girl with a Pearl Earring. A style that is in love with the way in which light encompasses an object, and it's light, kind of that misty light, sort of moisture-laden light of the Netherlands that creates these really hazy uh, profiles of a figure. So again, this is the girl with the pearl earring. There's actually a movie starring Scarlett Johansson named after this, and actually the guy who played Sirius Black in the Harry Potter movies was Vermeer. But anyway, you can see, and again, the way, for example, an outline of the pearl earring here or of the lips is only hinted at, but the light, the way the reflective light works on that object is really well studied and rendered. So that's Vermeer. Of these 36 paintings, the majority, the vast majority, are what we have been calling genre scenes. This painting is entitled, no, I'm going to do this here, The Woman Weighing Pearls, and that's exactly what it is. Again, a lot of his paintings are very, kind of formulaic. They show a woman in a room with the window wall either in front of her or behind her, a table where she's doing something, and then again, an ordinary genre scene type of thing, like, cutting bread or here weighing pearls or drinking or whatever. And then the room decoration. So these are like really extraordinary paintings that tell us about Dutch life. Again, done in this heavy atmospheric style of Vermeer. Look at the video on this painting, and it will talk about the two videos you have in the module, and it will talk about the geometry of these paintings as well. But just to show you that Vermeer, again, was not in some ways extraordinary for the Dutch world. He worked primarily in genre scenes. He too painted women. This is called The Music Lesson. Where a woman is in a situation with a man, a teacher here who's teaching her music, and we are, as in the last module, the paintings we looked at, we are in a situation where we have to kind of decipher what that relationship is, and again, sort of speaking to the tension, that kind of anxiety about women's role in society, both engaged in the social world, and yet there needs to be the sense that there needs to be tending to their virtues. One more, again, just to make that point, again, Vermeer doing here a girl with a wine glass, or sometimes these were not named by Vermeer in the 17th century, so we come up with different names for them. I call it Girl with a Wine Glass. It's sometimes called the coquette, the flirt. And again, here a woman drinking in the company of probably aristocrats who are wooing her in some way. So these are very typical of Vermeer's style. Subject matter, and then of course again with the haziness and the geometric composition, the style. Now Rembrandt, again, he's a different beast. whereas we know very little about Vermeer's life. We know he had a wife and a lot of kids. Rembrandt, we know a lot about his life and um, his first wife, his kind of second partner. We know about his financial troubles, his relationships. He was bankrupt. He went bankrupt a few times in his life. We know about his relationship, often tumultuous, with his patrons. He was always trying to get more money out of them. So in any event, we also know that he was infatuated with his own portrait, self-portraits. He did more self-portraits, I think, than most any artist. Again, there's the video will take you through some of them. So here he is at an old age, and again, the video will take you through that painting. Here he is at a younger age. Please notice that his palette is, nearly devoid of color, unlike Vermeer. That he does. I mean, I wouldn't call him a Caravaggisti, a follower of Caravaggio, but there is something to that. I mean, in terms of the light and dark, especially here in this younger portrait. He not only captured himself in paint, but in prints as well. So prints are just reproducible images. It's not a drawing, which is a one-off. It's you actually create the image on a metal plate using these three. So a metal plate using the 1, 2, 3, 4, using these 4 ingredients, so to speak. And there are videos that will explain the etching process. And then you use that plate and the ink. Keep applying the ink to the plate to get various reproducible images, multiple copies of images. This is another one of his self-portraits. Etching is a really interesting medium. It's fast. Rembrandt did it very fast. It allowed him to treat the cutting in metal, which is essentially what etching is, to treat it as if it were a drawing. And so these lines here reflect a kind of the sort of fast execution, very different from the slow execution of Vermeer. Fast execution, most frenzied. That is Vermeer. That is Rembrandt's. What makes Rembrandt different in some ways from the rest of the Dutch painters is that what makes him alike is that he did lots of portraits. Portraits was where the money was. And single portraits, he did many single portraits. He also did company portraits, that is, group portraits. All of you with your cell phones understand these concepts. A very famous one he did is called the Night Watch. He had a way of organizing people in the composition so that they all seemed to be engaged in movement. Again, this moment in time. Again, this is called the Night Watch. There's a history to the painting. It was cut down a bit. It was renamed at a certain point. The iconography is a bit obtuse, but in any event, essentially what it is a group portrait of a militia company. As you might imagine, in the Netherlands, there was no central state army. Each city-state, each province rather, had its own army, and that's what these militia groups were about. Tons of portraits of these kind of corporate portraits or group portraits from this age, and Rembrandt's is just one. Rembrandt also did history painting, and again, this is what separates him from the rest of the Dutch painters. History painting, if we haven't done this term before, just means painting of a story that has significance, that comes out of some written text. Here we're looking at a mythological scene. It's Dana. Dana is someone who was impregnated by Zeus, a mortal woman who was kept in a tower, but Zeus finds her and changes himself into golden light and impregnates her. Anyway, you can read about that story on your own. This is an early painting by Rembrandt, and so the execution is smoother. He's applying the paint fairly smoothly, although in coloration and in the use of light and shadows, you can see that it's pretty typical Rembrandt. His later style is more loose. The application of paint is thicker. And let me see if I can stop this and zoom in. I don't know if you can see much in these details, but what you're reading is kind of splashes are indeed the paint strokes. And then there are like kind of thicker buildups here on the chin and in the decoration, thicker, I mean, like physically, like 3D sculptural buildups of paint on the surface. This is called impasto, I-M-P-A-S-T-O. It's a very Rembrandt way of painting. Again, early on he did kind of smooth painting. Later he does an impasto painting. Again, stop. Always worried about money. The history paintings gained him more money, as did the portraits. But prints were, again, he could do fast, and he could control the number of copies he made of them, and hence the prices. This is one of his more famous prints. It's Christ Preaching. It's an interesting print because it uses that sense of engagement with the Baroque kind of reaching out and engaging the viewer, not in the foreshortened way we saw in like Caravaggio, but in this way. So here's Christ, here's this crowd of people. They're very diverse. It includes children and women, older people, people of ethnically diverse. I think there's supposed to be a cripple in here somewhere as well. And then there is space left for us. So in this manner, uh, Rembrandt includes the viewer. He also did lots of little prints, almost, again, I guess he could sell them easily, but they seemed also like studies, almost in lieu of drawings. He would do these prints, and they were of peasants, in this case of peasants, of people of difference, so Jews. I don't know about yes, actually of Africans, etc. So and using again this style that is really quick and shows the process of making art. Again, very different from the way Vermeer kind of uses that brush and creates these kind of very slick surfaces.